Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the part 3 of the last session online of the ANS Uncharted Waters series, Building and Sustaining Long-Term Relationships. My name is Ira Strong, and I am a member of the American Nuclear Society Cares Committee, and we are very happy to have you all with us for this very important webinar. And this webinar dives into how we can build authentic long-lasting trust with the communities that we are serving. So I hope you are here for that. And over the past 2 sessions, we explore how to find the gatekeepers, start the conversation, and build that first bridge. But today we're gonna go deeper and we're gonna start asking questions like, once the connection is made, then how do we sustain it? Very important question. And this session is all about continuity, reciprocity, and authentic engagement, and how to maintain the momentum, nurture that trust through leadership changes, and make sure that our outreach continues to matter for years from now. And that is very important. But before we begin, a few quick notes. If you have any questions, you can enter them in the chat. And this session is being recorded and a link will be emailed. Probably, I'm not sure if a link will be emailed, but you can find it on the ANS website. That's where you're gonna be able to find this webinar later on. And also, if you like a certificate of attendance, just put it in the chat as well. And as always, we ask to all participants to follow the ANS Code of Ethics and Respectful Behavior Policy, which is available at ans.org. Let's make sure that today's discussion remains respectful and open to all perspectives. And I like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the ANS Cares committee members, our ANS staff, and especially Dr. Jacqueline Stonewall, who has guided us through this entire Uncharted Waters series as our instructor and inspiration. Also, thank you to all our moderators and our perspective sharers for lending your time and expertise throughout this series. Thank you so much for that. So now let's jump into today's discussion. So Jacqueline, take it away.
Okay, let me get my slides up on the screen and we can get started. Okay, could somebody give me a verbal confirmation that you are seeing the title of our presentation for today?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so as Ira mentioned, this is series, this is number 3 out of 3. So as she beautifully introduced, we started off with understanding who we can partner with, how we actually start and have some events. And now this one is, okay, so we had an event, we did something, we did some outreach, we did some recruitment. How do we keep that going into the future? How do we get past obstacles like leadership changes, position changes, just time in general, and the way that relationships ebb and flow. So the goal for today is to understand how we keep all those good things that we've already learned flowing. We'll be here for 90 minutes, just like the other 2 sessions. So we will be out at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, and then minus 2 hours for the other 2 time zones. Okay, so I'm Jacqueline. If you've been here for the first or the second or both of our sessions, you've met me. So I've worked in user experience and research strategy for about a decade now. My big thing is taking teams from places of a lot of uncertainty into having an outcome or a strategy, especially for products and things like that. One of my big things is understanding and recruiting the right people. Research being a community engagement tool, which is where my work here with ANS comes in, setting products up for success and sharing knowledge. I was a teacher for a little while, so I'm very big into teaching and sharing anything that I know. I also went to Iowa State University 3 times. Not sure if anybody else on the call is an Iowa State grad, but if you are, send a shout out in the chat. Okay. So that's me. Not too much to say about me, especially if you've already been here a couple times. But let's do some introductions about the other faces, other names that you're going to be seeing today. So we will be doing some breakout sessions. I will give you all the information about the breakout sessions. You don't need to worry about it. Don't need to get too concerned about how it's going to work yet. But for our breakout sessions, we will have moderators. We have 5 individuals who have graciously volunteered to be our moderators for today. We have Leah Parks, Jamie Cobble, I am so sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Matt Jaska, Kaylee Jorgensen, and Price Collins. So everyone currently in our call would be divided up amongst those 5 different moderators into our breakout rooms and our breakout sessions. For our participants, this one is important, so I'll end up saying it a couple of times as we're getting started today. The way that we try to break everyone out for the breakout rooms is by region, so that people in the breakout rooms often know each other, are in the same ANS section, might work in some of the same places. So please add your state abbreviation, like MN if you're in Minnesota, behind your name in Zoom so the mods can assign you to the breakout rooms. This just makes it easier and faster because they will be assigning everyone to the rooms on the call right now, kind of in real time. So if you are able to change your name, add your state behind it, leave your first name there, your last name, but please just add the state abbreviation behind the name so that everybody can find where you're at and put you into the correct breakout room. So we'll be putting you into one of 5 different rooms. You'll know when that's happening. But for right now, please add the state behind your name so that we can make that happen. Also, a couple of thank yous to sponsoring organizations. So of course, the American Nuclear Society, but specifically the Young Members Group and the Education, Training and Workforce Development Division as well. So big thank yous to both of those groups. And reminder, I'm going to say it a few times, please add your state behind your name in Zoom so we can get you into the right breakout room. Okay, so what are we going to leave here today? So the first thing is, identify the best practices for long-term community trust and engagement. This is just understanding kind of that we covered in that the first 2 sessions, how to recognize that that's happening. Know the signs of healthy engagement partnerships and how to measure those. I'm sure there are a lot of very metrics driven folks on the call today. So what can we do to see, hey, are we good? Is the partnership that we have tried to cultivate with these groups and these communities, is it doing okay? What can we look at over time to see how we're doing? And then finally, develop some strategies to sustain engagement despite leadership changes. The thing that I kind of like to sum up the session with is we're moving from outreach as an event to engagement as a relationship. It isn't just, hey, you know what? I went and I did a recruitment event. I went and I did a science night at the middle school, and now we are done. It's a long-term partnership that makes everything run much more smoothly in the future. Okay, so our first opportunity for some engagement, one of the things that we will be doing a lot of today is talking with each other, either via the chat or with our breakout rooms. So the first thing I'd like everybody to do is, of course, add your state behind your name, but also in the chat, answer this question for me. What is one word that you associate with the phrase community engagement and recruitment? And did you attend session 2 in May? Okay, so 2 things, pop it into the chat, and I'm going to look at the chat and see what type of answers we are getting. And thank you, Jamie, for putting some instructions into the chat for how to add your name. So I'm seeing curiosity, dialogue. The thing that always stands out to me, my word, is partnership. I think I like, Laura, you also put partnership. I love that. For me, because I've been talking about this for a long time, it's probably not surprising that I put partnership. But I'm glad to see other people who might not have been doing this forever think about it as well. Other good things: aperture, enrollment in objectives and strategies, partnership, another partnership, thank you. Consent, collaboration, connection, I like that. Community building, strategic education, teamwork. I love this. Maybe sometime I should make a word cloud out of all of these. These are very good. Okay, so seeing a lot of good words, also a lot of people who have come to this session number 3 being the first. I promise you, you won't be left behind. You will still be able to participate even if you didn't do sessions 1 and 2. However, I think the ANS website has links to sessions 1 and 2 if you want to see the material that kind of led us to this place. But like I said, never fear, you can still participate. Everything will still be relevant. But if you'd like to see any of that background, maybe we can find those links and put those in the chat as well. I think we recorded those too. Okay. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about the logistics. So I see a lot of people changing their names in the chat to add the state. Thank you. I see a lot of those. So I mentioned the breakout rooms. We will use them 3 times during our session. Please participate as much as you're able. I understand completely that a lot of people are at work right now. You might have other meetings, other things going on. But if you are able to, please participate in the rooms. Please talk with each other. That's where the sharing, that's where the good stuff happens. That's where the aha moments happen. So please share as much as you're able. For our breakouts, I will pose questions to the large group, but don't worry, you don't have to remember them all. We're going to be using a tool called Mural. It's a digital whiteboard tool, and the link to Mural is in the chat. We will add the link to the chat again once we get to the section of the session where we're going to be using Mural. But if you can scroll into the chat and find that Mural link and enter, that would be awesome. Mural's just a digital whiteboard. It's not too intense. No need to worry. And when you come into Mural, if you wouldn't mind changing your name there, it'll give you a little pop-up box and it'll say, what's your name? Please add your name. Otherwise, it'll give you something silly like visiting lobster or something like that. And as cute as that is, it's hard to understand exactly who we've got in our murals if everybody is a visiting lobster or visiting lion or something like that. So thank you to Matt for putting the links to parts 1 and 2 in the chat as well. So the chat's just full of good information already, and we've only been here for 11 minutes. Okay, reminder on Mural, link is in the chat. You may have to scroll up. I will also post it again once we get to that section. No account necessary. So if something is prompting you for an account, put a note in the chat because something's gone wrong there. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to log in. Just type a name once you get in. Okay. So final reminder here, and then we'll actually get into the good stuff, the fun stuff. One of the biggest things that makes these sessions work is if we all agree not to be spectators. It works so much better when we are all talking with each other and engaging. So when we get into our breakout rooms, it's best if we're able to talk with each other, engage with each other, and also engage with the mural. I know it might be a new tool for some people, might not be a new tool for some people, but if we've got people adding content, adding things like that, it makes the discussion so much more rich, and that's what we're here for. It also helps us learn from each other. So the final reminder before we get into the fun stuff is no spectators. Okay, so let's get into the good stuff. Question I just saw in the chat from Anne. Yes, it's okay that you're a visitor. It should ask you for your name as soon as you get in. So it's totally okay that you're a visitor. So what are we looking to do today? One of the biggest issues that I think people often run into with the idea of outreach and engagement and recruitment is the idea that it's a one-time event, or it's something that I do to get something out of it. I recruit new employees, I recruit talent, I spread the word about the potential for education in nuclear science. I spread the idea that these are interesting careers. I spread awareness. I do something like that as opposed to an ongoing relationship that we nurture over time. And when we are in that kind of idea of this is a single event or a single output, what happens is every time we want to go do that again, so say we want to go and do some recruitment again in a couple of years, we want to go and do some outreach again in a few months, in a few years, whatever the time scale is there, we end up climbing that mountain again. So we did all that work to understand who we need to talk to, what's important to them, what our shared goals are, how to even logistically run the events, how to set things up, all of that good stuff, all the stuff that we really talked about in sessions 1 and 2, and then we lose it. And we have to climb the mountain again. We've already gotten to the top, and then we kind of just dropped our backpack up there and ran down it. And then we have to keep going. So the goal here is so that we don't have to keep climbing the mountain. And that we're going to build our engagement and our outreach opportunities, our recruitment opportunities for scalability and continuity. I love a good comparison chart. I have a feeling some folks in this session might also like a good comparison chart, so I put one up here. The kind of traditional transactional approach to outreach is, it's a one-time event. I'm informing people about something that's happening, either an employment opportunity or the idea of nuclear science as a career or just as a topic of education. It's one contact, it's output focused. And that's okay. You know, if it's not the worst thing, it's still, you know, you're doing outreach, you're doing recruitment, you are getting to a goal, but it doesn't set you up for the long-term success that I think we're looking for here. And what does, though, is the relational engagement. That means it's ongoing dialogue, it's feedback from both sides of who you're trying to engage with, co-creating, so actually involving the community members, the people who you're trying to work with or engage within the planning for the events that you're doing. Multiple connectors. We'll talk a little bit about this, especially as we get to the handoff plan section of the session. Multiple people that you talk to. It's not just one point of contact. You say, hey, can I come in and set up a booth at the career fair? And it's relationship focused as opposed to just output focused. So that's the overarching idea, that we really want to shift our perspective from the idea of making a transaction to a nurturing relationship. Okay, so there are a couple words, and I think this is actually the only one that are going to come up here that are not necessarily the most common words. So gatekeeper, we're just going to go through the definition of this, so some of the other stuff in the next few slides makes sense. But when we're talking about a community in which we want to do some outreach, we want to do some recruiting, especially if that's a community where we're not already a member. Gatekeepers are the people with some local influence, power, and respect that add credibility to our initiatives. They're the key to the community. There are lots of people who are gatekeepers. They can really be anybody. And we can probably, in our own lives, in our personal lives, in our work lives, kind of identify who our gatekeepers are for our own communities. But especially when we're working with communities that we are not already part of, they're not necessarily always obvious. They can be people like religious, tribal, political leaders, neighborhood association leaders. This is one that I've had a lot of success with, actually. Not somebody I would necessarily have thought was going to be my research gatekeeper, but neighborhood association leaders can be very impactful. PTA or PTO leaders, school principals, teachers, public librarians, community groups. It's that person who is very engaged, who knows people, and who can give you the credibility, who can give you the in, who's kind of your secret, your key to unlocking, being able to get to a group of people that you are interested in doing that outreach with. So how do we find them? There are a few ways. A lot of this is actually research-based. So understanding who or are already in the community in terms of organizations that might be working with them, and getting some advice there. Studying social media and print media, like what flyers are on the bulletin board. I know that this sounds a little cheesy and maybe a little bit hokey, but this has actually been one of the ways that I have found is best for my own outreach. This is how I started to understand who my neighborhood association leaders were, and that those neighborhood associations were surprisingly strong. I know in the neighborhood that I personally live in, I don't even know what neighborhood association is, but in the neighborhoods that I was looking to work with, those neighborhood associations hosted events. The people who were in charge of those were very active, and those ended up being my gatekeepers. And the only way that I actually knew that was by looking at social media and looking at what's happening in that neighborhood. So I know that it might sound a little silly, but it can be really helpful. And also just asking. A lot of the takeaways from these 3 sessions have to do with just asking and being transparent with intentions, asking questions, getting feedback, and not making assumptions. Okay, so that's the idea of a gatekeeper. And the reason we had to talk about that is because of this slide, where we want to go beyond the gatekeeper. So like I said, that's our individual who controls access to a community because of their influence or position. But we want to move past that. So in the first 2 sessions, we really set up the idea of figuring out who that gatekeeper was, starting the partnership with them to be able to plan these events and get our movement off the ground. But in this session, we want to go past that and have something that is scalable and something that we can continue into the future. So there are 2 concepts here that I think are pretty important. The first is value over visibility. And this is the idea, once again, of shifting from that transactional to the relational. And the question that is good to ask ourselves here is, if we weren't in the room, would this follow-up still help them do what they already care about? So would this activity that I'm doing with this community help them do something that they already care about? Would they be accomplishing an important goal if I wasn't here? Or are we just doing this because I'm in the room? Visibility is something that's about us. So we came back to show that we care, like we came and did a second event because we care. But value is about them. So we came back with something that helps you meet your goals. In sessions 1 and 2, one of the biggest things that we covered was the idea of having shared goals with the community that we are interested in partnering with. And so this is an opportunity to go back and revisit those goals. What are we doing continuously that helps both of us meet the goals that we set together? These things that provide value can be things like relevant learning resources, connections or contacts to move forward in a career, employment opportunities, tools or data. There are lots of things that can be valuable. The important thing is to make sure that the value actually aligns with what the community wants. Handing out flyers is not valuable to everyone. It's valuable to some people. Employment opportunities are not necessarily valuable to a team of sixth graders. So it's just making sure that we have the right valuable pieces to show that we are not just coming back for the optics. And then also soliciting feedback. You're going to see that this is in both columns, and in the second column it got bold. But the idea here is that it's important for us to actually start getting that feedback to see if that relationship is doing well. So that's the first idea, value over visibility. And the second one is to nurture the connection. So this is, once again, pulling a lot of what we covered in session 1 and 2 together, but meeting our community partners where they already are. School meetings, local events. This is really showing that the partnership isn't all just about what we are getting out of it. Listening first to understand their priorities before offering support, co-creating opportunities, guest speaker slots, classroom activities, joint events. When you can be an active partner, and when your community partner is active with you, that shows good relationship health. So we'll talk about indicators of relationship health further on in today's session, but these are really good places where if we're being able to have these opportunities, you know, we are being guest speakers in each other's organizations, then we're showing good relationship health. Recognizing and crediting them publicly for leadership, and then once again, but in bold, soliciting feedback for your team. This is one of the things people don't always think about, you know. For an outreach opportunity, it's not necessarily first nature to think, oh yeah, let me see how that went for everyone. Like, I feel like I did something good here. Why do I need to get feedback? But the idea is to make sure that everybody is feeling the same way, that the people that we were trying to reach, the people we were trying to recruit, feel that they got something out of it. And that's why the feedback portion. Okay, so it is time for our first guest case study, and we're going to have 4 of these today. So this is something we started in our second session, and it worked really well because, you know, I can share my experiences doing community outreach, but I don't have experience within any part of the nuclear industry. And so that's what we are doing with these case studies. We are bringing in some of our experts. This first one is going to be from Lisa Marshall and her experience using the ANS student chapter as ambassadors, inviting stakeholders into their space and leveraging student enthusiasm for authentic connection. So I will turn it over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you for having me today on this webinar. And I'm looking forward to hearing and the interactions that we're going to do. I am the immediate past president for the American Nuclear Society, and I've got to say that, oh gosh, I joined the organization in 2005, and I rolled up my sleeve, and that is what I have done. It's that outreach, that initially a called outreach, but really is engagement, community engagement or stakeholder engagement. I started at North Carolina State University in a directorship position around that, and now I hold a professor's position here at the university. But outreach, engagement, making sure that this engagement is relationship building and that it's a win-win opportunity for all, and nurturing it between us on a regular basis so that then it's sustainable over the years. So the example I wanted to give is the American Nuclear Society student chapter that is at most of the universities that offer nuclear engineering around the nation. And their mandate really is networking, peer support, and then going out into the community. So in my position of extension, it's a requirement that we take a look at I'm a at a land-granted university. It's a requirement or an ideal that then the knowledge that is produced within the institution is for the benefit of the of the community. So we can't stay in the institution. We have to go out, which is a really cool position to be able to have and to do. And it's super exciting to be able to take our student ambassadors as well. This helps with that interpersonal skills, and then also there's nothing like knowing the material as going out and sharing the material, right, in a conversational manner, and then having sort of the resources that then can be brought into the situation. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. One would be our relationship with the Marbles Kids Museum. And we've been involved with them and some other of the museums around here for a while. And they have a session where the age range for that particular organization, they get to decide who comes into their space and interacts with them on a science fair basis. So for us now to sit down and think, well, what would a 10-year-old, how would we attract them to our particular display and interactive materials, right? So normally I'm sitting down with our students and we're brainstorming. They're closer in age to them than I am these days. But just trying to think about what would be exciting for a student of that particular age, and then going out and doing it. And me stepping back and just acting in a supportive manner, making sure that we have the resources at hand, make sure that I've given a briefing to the students overall. And then for those that have done this before, that they are acting as kind of the peers that are rooting the others, the newcomers to this on. And then I kind of doing a review of what we've done each and every time that we've done it, right? So this particular one I'm talking about is that it only happens once a year. However, in between those times, we are doing this bi-directional set of programming, right? So we're going into the classroom, we're participating in after-school programs, we are doing Saturday programs as well at the institution, and it could be formal education or not, right? So I'm also thinking of the scouts, I'm thinking about after-school programs, I'm thinking about homeschoolers as well, right? So it's bi-directional. We've met them, interacted with them in the museum. We've told them about some of the other things that we're doing. And in some instances, they're leading what the topic they would like us to cover, right? And then we're brainstorming about how would be best to deliver it to these sets of students and the other stakeholders, which would include parents and teachers and counselors, et cetera, in the spaces that we go into. And then we always have something, invite individuals back onto campus as well. There's nothing like going into some of the labs. There's some things that are just not portable, but we have access to in an after-school program or a Saturday program. So for instance, we have the Girl Scouts coming on Saturday morning, and then we have the Scouts of America coming on in the afternoon. We're opening up our simulator so that then we can run through scenarios in starting up and changing the variability of indicators on a virtual reactor, so to speak. We also have the cloud chambers that came from ANS National, where we're going to be visualizing radiation, and we're going to be also looking at everyday sources. You know, we're bringing out our Fiesta, where we're showing students how to use radiation detection software on their phones, so that then that particular knowledge and excitement can be taken back home and also into the school setting. And we're going back and forth with that, right? Because the troop leader, we had multiple conversations over the years on what went well, what didn't go well, how we're going to change it up, what he's going to do prior or she's going to do prior to them coming onto campus, and then what we are going to do as well. And the students at the university are a key component of all of this. So I know that for the Girl Scouts, our team took the lead in recruiting and kind of going through what the curriculum would look like. And I worked with the Boys of America, the Scouts of America, just because I had more of a relationship with them to make sure that we were on the same page. So I guess what I'm saying is that try to make it as organic as possible, and that it's going to be sustainable over the years. And it may fall off sometimes. Not some of the activities that we do, we don't do it every year because we're hitting a larger number of students. So this event on Saturday is going to have approximately 70 students and their parents contacted. And also make it a win-win relationship. So they know where they can call upon, and we can call upon that anything should happen or any idea has been sparked, so to speak, and then nurture it, right? I constantly check in with my community contacts just to see how they're doing if I haven't heard from them in a long while. And they do the same for me. And we always promise to do something outside of these various engagement activities. And sometimes we do, right? And then sometimes we just kind of get caught up in personal lives. But we have as our common goal generational impact, and that is through STEM, and we're using the resources we have on both sides to make it happen.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. That was incredible.
You're welcome.
Two of the things that I really want to highlight in what she just said so that we don't forget them are the check-ins and the two-way nature of the relationship and making sure that it's been beneficial for both sides. Love that. That is probably, I am so glad that you mentioned that specifically, because those are relationship health indicators. That means that we're doing a good job. So thank you, Lisa.
Welcome.
Okay, so moving on, let's talk a little bit about some of the common pitfalls that sometimes we fall into when doing our outreach. So there are a few problems, and then we're going to present problems and solutions because I hate just throwing problems out there without something to do about it. So the idea, tokenism, we've shown up for the optics like, hey, we've gone and done outreach with this group of kids, or we've done recruitment with this group of adults. Hey, good, look at us, pat us on the back. That's that doesn't really help us go from transactional to relational. The idea here in the solution is planning for the actual relationship, not just the event. Follow up with the people that you're working with, even if that follow up is a thank you note. A thank you note actually goes a long way. The follow ups do not have to be the most elaborate thing, but just those types of things to show appreciation and to show the two-way nature of the relationship are things that will keep it going in the future. Next problem, over-promising, under-delivering. This can be one of the big problems that we get into. We get really excited and we think, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things that we can do with this organization. And then we make the big plans and we aren't able to achieve them. And that can be really hurtful for the relationship, especially in the future. So fewer and smaller commitments. One of the things that I encourage people to do is to do one thing well. If we are incredibly talented at this one thing, we are great at getting middle schoolers, for example, engaged. That is our one thing, and we can do that well. Assuming needs without asking. So I know I highlighted the feedback. I put it in regular text and then I put it in bold text, but this goes along with that. So assuming needs without asking. And the solution is just to ask the community and approach with curiosity. We don't have to be experts in everything. I think one of the things that Lisa said was very helpful and very impactful. The students are closer to their age than I am at this point. And that it's not always about age. It can be about a lot of different things. We aren't always the closest people to those communities, and we don't always know exactly what resonates with them or what they need or what they want. And so this is asking. Misaligned timing or resources. This is a common one that we think, because we get very caught up in our own lives and our own schedules and what makes sense for us, but not things that don't make sense in terms of outreach events for communities. This is one that I see people do often. They'll plan an event because it's a good time for them. It's like right after work. But for a lot of people with like families and kids and stuff, that is not actually an awesome time. And so just thinking about like the daily schedules and the daily lives of people you want to reach, kind of like, we wouldn't do an event at 10 p.m. if we were trying to reach small children. Marketing also matters. The words that we use when we're trying to sell our events matter. They can sound different to our participants than they do to us. So things like we want to raise awareness can sometimes sound like they're here to give us a lecture. That's boring. That's not interesting. We want to help can sometimes sound like they think we have a problem and we need fixing. We want visibility for this program can sound like they want attention and not connection. So thinking about the way that we frame the words we use, even when we're trying to recruit people for these events.